Hey, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give Call Allah Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praise, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father. In the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Right? I want to give Shalom to the hopeful elect and double honors to the elders and apostles that labored before me in this truth and taught me this truth. Right? I want to talk about the friend of the world syndrome, man. You know, a lot of Israelites struggle with that friend of the world demon, man. You know, still they haven't shucking off the old man, old woman. They still seek to be seek approval of this world, not knowing that, hey, to be in this truth, to be a follower of the Messiah, Yahweh Shai, you have to be separate from this world. You have to be made holy, right? Holy means separate. You know, when you're a saint, you're sanctified. You're taken out of this world. You're in this world, but not of the world, right? You're basically become an enemy of the world because the world hates truth. So I'm going to start here in St. James chapter 4 and verse 4. It says, "Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with the Most High? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of the Most High," right? So being a friend of the world is multifaceted, you know? You're trying to look like the world. You know, you're mixing the wine of the Most High, the doctrine of the Most High, with the wine of this world. You know, you're overly obsessed with fixing the community. You know, especially if you're a prophet. That's not your job, man. You weren't sent here. You weren't commanded to come fix the community. The job is to wake up the elect and to prophesy the downfall of America, and also to prophesy the coming glory of Yahweh Shai, right? Who's going to honor the Father by ruling in righteousness on this earth. That's your job, man. You know, you worry about things that don't got nothing to do with this truth, right? You know, so you got to separate, and that goes into, separate from the doctrines, right? That image of the beast. And, you know, the image of the beast is the whole system, you know, that Renaissance mindset, that in age of enlightenment, that godlessness, right? You got to separate from all that. Let me get this in the book of Genesis, chapter 12. I'm going to start at verse 1. "Now Yahweh had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee," right? So right now, Abram, his name was changed to Abraham, right? And you see that throughout the scriptures. That name change is significant of like a changing of the time, changing of the guard, you know what I mean? Of enlightenment, of righteous enlightenment, right? So Abram's being told to get away from his kindred, because the holy seed, they had commandments before the law, you know what I mean, the law of Moses. But if you read the history, Abraham's father, I believe Terah, if that's how you say it, he was an idol worshiper. He had gone off, right? Pretty much all of his kindred had gone off, and they were following the ways of the other nations. Right? This is verse 2. It says, "And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." So Abram departed as Yahweh had spoken unto him, and Lot with him. And Abram was 70 and 5 years old when he departed out of Haran, right? So, you know, you gotta separate, man. You gotta separate from the ways of these heathens. And the very heathens you might have to separate from is your own family. That don't mean you don't love them and still keep in touch with them, but you can't follow their ways, right? They invite you to a Christmas party, you know. You can spend time with your family, but you're not, you know, pitting gifts under the tree. You're not doing all that. You're separate. You're following the Most High God's holy days. And if your family has a problem with that, you know, it is what it is, man. You know, but you gotta stand fast in what you believe in, regardless of the outcomes. Right? This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 10. I'm gonna start at verse 1. "Hear ye the word which Yahweh spaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them," right? So what did it say? Don't learn the ways of the heathen. Don't learn the ways of America. Don't be a good American, right? You live in America and you have citizenship citizenship in America. It's just like Paul. He was a Roman citizen, and he used that to his advantage. But he didn't conduct himself as a Roman. He conducted himself as an Israelite. He said he was a Hebrew of Hebrews, right? He said, are they Hebrews? So am I. Am I Israelite? So am I. I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. He ran down his pedigree, right? That's what he was proud in. That's what he, took pride in, being of the Most High God's chosen people, not trying to be a Roman, because that's the end thing, right? Being an Israelite is cool, but it's really not the end thing to follow the Most High God in all that he's commanded. People will know they're Israelite, but they still want to be an American. They still want to celebrate 4th of July, right? They still want to celebrate Thanksgiving, right? They want to glory in these other things. They want to go put on ugly sweaters, and get Christmas mugs. That's what they want to do. They don't really want to follow the ways of the Most High and separate from the ways of the heathen and the ways of the nation, right? Because when you do that, you like I said, being a friend of the world is enmity with the Most High. Well, being a friend of the Most High is enmity of the world. You're going to go through trials, tribulations, right? It's going to be tough some of the time, but ultimately the reward is way greater when you're a friend of the Most High, right? You got to choose your friends wisely, right? Do you want to be a friend of the Most High or a friend of the world? Right, this is verse 3. It says, for the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. Right, so this is going into an ancient custom, similar to what Christians celebrate today, Christmas. People will say, well, that's not what that's talking about, but it's the same thing. It's similar things. Especially when you get into the origin of Christmas and find out the origin comes from Saturnalia. It comes from different gods. You can't make something clean that was filthy at its conception, right? The Most High God has his holidays. You can't just take a pagan holiday and apply it to the Most High and say, oh, well, no, we're celebrating Jesus' birthday. No, that's not accurate. You can't do that. That's idolatry, right? This is verse 5. It says, they are upright as palm trees. They speak not, but they speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor also is it in them to do good, right? These other gods aren't going to do good for you. You got to follow the Most High God. Let's get this in the book of Leviticus, chapter 18. And I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, and Yahweh spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am Yahweh your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwell, ye shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do. Neither shall ye walk in their ordinances, right? Don't follow the ways of life of these other nations. And our people struggle with that, especially here in America, right? They're so addicted to the ways of Edomite Christianity, and this do what thou wilt spirit that, they can't shake out of it. No, it's a stronghold, right? Verse 4, ye shall do my judgments and keep mine ordinances to walk therein. I am Yahweh your God, right? And some of those ordinances are the holy days. The Most High God gave us holy days to celebrate, new moons, the Sabbath, Passover, Feast of Dedication. Right, we're supposed to be doing the Most High God's ordinances, not these made up ordinances that come from the so-called church fathers, right? Wicked men that were subverting whole households, teaching them they can do whatever they want, eat whatever they want because the Messiah died. That doesn't even make any sense. The Messiah gave his life, right, so that you can do whatever you want. No, he gave his life to redeem you from the punishments of the law that we were guilty of. If you're an Israelite today, after this great awakening, that woke up from that valley of dry bones, you didn't broke so many Sabbaths. You didn't fail to keep so many Passovers. Like you're supposed to be put to death 100 times over. But that's what the Messiah came for, so that you are allowed to come back in where the law didn't allow that reconciliation, right? You couldn't go to the high priest and say, well, I have faith in the Messiah. No. Under that first covenant, the law said what the law said, pretty much was void of mercy, This is, read verse 4. Ye shall do my judgments and keep my ordinances to walk therein. I am Yahweh your God. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am Yahweh, right? So you got to live in these ordinances, right? And this right here is talking about the ways of the Egyptian, the Canaanites, and it goes on to list a bunch of sexual deviant sins, right? But if you go to Revelations 11 and 8, it's the book of Revelation chapter 11 verse 8 says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified, right? So this is talking about Mystery Babylon, you know, the great city. We'll just look up great city, right? And it's all through the book of Revelation, right? Let's see. I'll read this one. This is the book of Revelation chapter 18:21. It says, and a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and shall be found no more at all. Right. This is talking about the nuclear destruction of Mystery Babylon, which is America. Right. We just read that the great city is spiritually Sodom and Gomorrah. Right, just like it says in Deuteronomy 28, you'll go back into Egypt again by ship. That's why you have the pyramid on the back of the dollar. You know, this place is spiritually a lot of places. Rome, it has the power of the Roman Empire, of the first beast, right? But like we just read, it's spiritually Sodom and Egypt. That's why you have so much sexual immorality in this nation. You know, women will sleep with multiple men. That's adultery, right? Men with men, women with women. You know me, bestiality. People fornicating with young children. This is all rampant in this society, in this kingdom. You know, and it's allowed to go on. Actually, it's promoted. It's promoted for children to go out and get a gender change. That's promoted, man. And if you speak against that, they'll call you wicked, right? Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, right? We can get that real quick. This is the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 5 and verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter, right? Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. That's what this nation does, man. If you speak out against something, it should be common sense that the thing that they're saying is wicked. But our people, and really this whole nation, has been so watered down at the hands of the wicked that they call shit that's completely, it's blatantly off. They'll co-sign that, right? And they'll go to rallies protesting that they should be able to do this, right? I seen a video at this LGB this alphabet parade, and they're talking about they're coming for your children, right? In California, I believe there's a law where a parent doesn't have to tell you if their kid's feeling like they're a different gender, you know. And where does that feeling come from? Because nobody knows what if you're a man, born a man, you don't know what it feels like to be a woman. So someone has to put that idea in your mind, and that's that sexual deviancy. That's that spirit of Edom. That spirit of Egypt and Sodom, and actually the spirit of Edom, right? We can get that. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, and we'll start at 16, right? Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. Right. So, hey, Esau is a high level fornicator, man. You know, he be fornicating on a whole nother level, you know, sleeping with dogs, animals, young children. He just lives a sick life, you know, and that's how his kingdom is ran. Let's get this in the book of Romans chapter 8. We'll start at verse 5. And it reads, For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit, right? And that's the blessing of being an Israelite, is being after the spirit, you know. These other nations are base men. They move after their flesh, after their fleshly desires. But when you're moving by the Spirit, you got to be above that. You got to be able to control your flesh, and that's the way you do that is through the Holy Spirit of discipline. Like verse 6, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace, right? You can't be thinking carnally. You got to think everything is spiritual, man. You got to see the spiritual meaning in everything, right? You gotta judge by the Spirit, not by appearance. That's why a lot of people in the not of Israelites get caught up on black, right? No, man, you can't get caught up on that, because there's millions of black Edomites walking around. But if you see someone that looks like an Edomite, you immediately say, oh, Edomite. No, but all you gotta do is prophesy and let the word resonate with them, man. Judge the Spirit by the Spirit, We can't get caught up in all these looks and stuff, We can't get caught up in feeding the flesh, right? Success in this world, you go out and put in your work, get your money, but that's not the end all be all, man. You want to be gathering spiritual riches, right? Verse 7, because the carnal mind is enmity with the Most High, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please the Most High, right? And we just said, the friendship of this world is enmity with the Most High, right? And that's the same thing with the carnal mind, man. When you're constantly trying to feed your flesh. Let's get this in 1 John. This is 1 John chapter 2. We'll start at verse 15. It says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Right? You gotta be looking forward to the next kingdom, right? Which is the kingdom that the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, the true Israelites, will be ruling in under Yahushua, right? If you're worried about your life in America, you're overly concerned about that, you're entangled with that, you're not going to be successful in the next life, right? You're going to get your reward on this side, right? Verse 16, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of this world, right? You overly concerned about your achievements, of your rank in this life instead of your rank in the next life, man. You should be shooting to be that 144,000 to rule on the earth with Yahushua, right? Who the world calls Jesus. We should be striving for that, looking forward to that, not trying to get your biggest concern is your promotion, right? Hey, you can go ahead and get a promotion, but don't put that in front of the work of the Most High God, man, right? Verse 17, and the world passeth away and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of the Most High abideth forever, right? And we're trying to get eternal life. That's what you should be shooting for. The things, the lust and the desire of this world, it's all going to fade away. It's not here forever, man. It's here today and gone tomorrow. Let me get this in 2 Timothy 2. And I'm going to start at 1. Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Yahushua HaMashiach. And the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also, right? So, we gotta be out here trying to teach. We gotta be faithful, and teach the things that we've seen, right? From the elders and the apostles, the example we've been given, especially through these scriptures. We've been given a bunch of wise men and wise examples to follow after, right? We got to take that information and apply it to our own life, right? So that we can be the example that other people are looking for, right? Verse 3, thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahushua HaMashiach. No man that warreth entangle himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who have chosen him to be a soldier, right? And this is a spiritual warfare. Yahushua, he was a builder. He had an occupation. He was doing hard labor, right? He was a carpenter. His father was a carpenter, He learned that same trade. But he was doing hard work, and he still had the time to go out and teach. He wasn't overly concerned about making money. He wasn't overly concerned about the affairs of this world. right? He had to come down and put himself in, he was rich, but had to come and put himself in a position of, low-key poverty, and he didn't see it all, if you could receive it. Yahushua was Solomon. He didn't see the highs of the world, and he had to come down and get into the slums, man. What, Galilee, they said, what they said, can any good thing come out of Galilee? You know what I mean? He was from the ghetto, right? Let's get back to it. This is the book of Sirach. All right, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 6 and verse 5. And it reads, sweet language will multiply friends, and fair speaking tongue will increase kind greetings. Be in peace with many, nevertheless have but one counselor of 1,000, right? And this is going back to, you want to be a friend of the Most High God, right? But you should also be striving to be at peace with all men, but you don't trust all men, right? That's why I say, you can have a gentle tongue, man. Be able to talk to people. Have your speech sprinkled with grace, right? Be at peace with many, nevertheless have but one counselor out of 1,000, and really that counselor is the Spirit, right? And the Most High, through by Hashem Yahushua, in the name of Yahushua, right? You consulting with the Spirit. You're praying to the Most High God. That's where you take your counsel, right? You can't get overly concerned with being friends of these people in this world, man. You got to push past that, and that's why you got to stay around the saints. You got to stay around these brothers that are girded up in the Spirit, and you can do that multitude of ways, If you're in a camp, you should be, congregating with those brothers, chopping it up. You should be you got to be going to camp and seeing them brothers, right? You got YouTube. You can get on lives. You can watch videos, but you got to be constantly in this ministry. You got to be constantly surrounding yourself with this word, so your mind is continuously getting washed, right? Say, be not conformed to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How are you renewed? By washing it with the word, right? Staying in the scriptures, right? Staying around brothers that are girded up in the scriptures, right? Let me get this, and we're gonna go to St. Luke. St. Luke 16, and we're gonna read this parable of the steward, right? This is the book of St. Luke, chapter 16. I'm gonna start at verse 1. And he said also unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward. Then the steward said unto him, said within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig to beg. I am ashamed. Right. So the unrighteous steward, the Most High came, he came, his boss came to give him, it's like, hey, give me an account of what you been doing with my money. He's like, damn, I've been going off, man, and I can't dig, and I damn sure ain't gonna beg, right? So verse 4, it says, I am resolved to what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their household, right? So he's trying to scheme up. He's like, okay, let me find out a way I can do this. Let me make some friends, right? So verse 5, it says, so he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him and said unto the first, how much owest thou unto my Lord? And he said, in 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, take thy bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then said he to another, and how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, take thy bill and write 80. And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. Right? So the people in this world have become wiser than the children of Israel. Why is that? Because we're not using the wisdom and the understanding the Most High gave us to operate in a wise way. Right? This is verse 9. It says, and I say unto you Make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fall, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in least is unjust also in much. If therefore ye have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust the true riches, right? So if you can't even operate correctly in this world, with money that's given to you, with around women, with alcohol, with the unrighteous mammon, how are you going to, operate when you're given true riches, true rulership, And it's going into, like I said, you got to make friends with the unrighteous mammon of this world. You got to make friends with, heathens, not literal friends, but you got to be peaceable with these people, right? So you can continue to operate in this world, but you can't get caught up in that. You can use a heathen, in the law it talks about good trees. The trees for fruit, you're not supposed to cut those down, but the trees that can't help you cut those down, use them for firewood, use them for making battlements, but you don't cut down all the trees, right? There's certain fruit that you can use, right? And that's how you gotta deal in this world, man. You're on the job, you can't be out there cussing everybody out, telling everybody about you the true Jews and Esau's the devil. Nah, man, just shut up and go to work, man. Make friends with the unrighteous mammon, but don't overdo it. Don't be trying to get married to this world. Nah, man, you just got to be acquaintances with this world, right? Verse 12, and if ye have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own, right? And one of the things, you got to be faithful with these bodies, man. The Most High God gave you these bodies. These bodies are a loner, right? The spirit is his ultimately, but the spirit is actually you. That's your essence. The physical body, you got to treat it like it's a loaner, like you're giving it back, right? So you got to take care of yourself. You got to be disciplined. You got to work on your mind, body, and spirit. You got to be doing all that, man. Getting your diet right. Not just having sex with anything that moves. You gotta discipline yourself, right? Verse 13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve the Most High and mammon, right? So you can't be obsessed with money. You can't be a friend of this world, man. If you're a friend of this world, you're not a friend of the Most High God. You get what I'm saying? All right, I'm gonna go to Wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter, what is this? Yeah, chapter 7, and I'm gonna go to verse 12. And it reads, and I rejoiced in them all, because wisdom goeth before them, and I knew not that she was the mother of them. I learned diligently, and do communicate her liberally. I do not hide her riches. For she is a treasure unto men that never faileth, which they that use become the friends of the Most High, being commended for the gifts that come from learning. The Most High hath granted me to speak as I would, and to conceive as meet, and to conceive as is meet for the things that are given me, because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom and directeth the wise, right? So, hey, when you're dwelling in that mother who is wisdom, that woman who is wisdom, when you're dwelling in her bosom, right, you're gonna get a treasure that never fails, man. Wisdom will never fail you, right? And that's gonna allow you to move peaceably through all of your life, right? It's going to make life a lot easier when you're following the wisdom of the Most High God. You're still going to have trials and tribulations, but you're going to know how to operate. You're going to know how to manage those. And the Most High God is going to direct you, right? What it say? It says, because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom and directeth the wise, right? So, hey, what does it say? The fear of the Most High is the beginning of wisdom. So you start fearing the Most High and you seek wisdom, he's going to guide you into more wisdom. Right? And he's going to direct your paths. Let's get, right? Isaiah, the book of Isaiah 45, and I believe 4, right? You know what I mean? Because the elect are going to be the ones that follow wisdom, that seek wisdom, right? And who's the elect, right? We're going to read it right here. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 4. It says, "For Jacob my servant's sake and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me," right? So, the elect are going to be seeking wisdom, right? And there's a reward for being the elect. Let's get that. This is get Isaiah 65. Isaiah 65, and I'm going to start at verse 18. And it reads, "But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy," right? Joy comes from wisdom, right? Verse 19, "And I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people, and the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, nor the voice of crying," right? Because our people are suffering right now. So-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are at the bottom. How do we get this? How do we get out of the bottom? By seeking righteousness, by seeking wisdom, right? Verse 20, "There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that have not filled his days. For the child shall die at 100 years old, but the sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed," right? So it's saying that basically, if you die at 100 in the kingdom, it's going to be like, damn, that man must have did something wrong, because people you're going to have everlasting life. Right. And that's the reward for the elect. That's the reward for those that seek wisdom, that seek the ways of the Most High God. Right. Let me read verse 20 in the NLT. It says, "No longer will babies die when only a few days old. No longer will adults die before they have lived a full life. No longer will people be considered old at 100. Only the cursed will die that young." Right. It says only the cursed will die that young. What? How young? 100 years old. Right. That's going to be considered young, especially for the elect. For the elect, that's going to be considered young, because the other nations are still going to be in regular bodies, right? They're not going to have everlasting life. That's a gift for the elect of Israel, you know what I mean? And really for all Israel. After the destruction, after they're reborn, you know what I mean? People coined the term nutsack Israelites, The 2/3 are going to have to be born back into the kingdom, right? So we get back into verse 21 in the KJV. And it reads, hold up. And it reads, "And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build and another inhabit, they shall not plant and another eat. For as the days of a tree are the days of my people, and mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands," right? So in the curses, it tells you, hey, you're going to build a house that someone else will live in, You're going to plant, you have vineyards and someone else is going to eat, Other people are going to eat your cattle. That's no more, right? That's the reward for following the wisdom of the Most High God and being friends with the Most High, right? Not being friends with this world, right? Because friends of this world, that's going to get you the reward of being destroyed, getting hit with thermonuclear destruction, getting hit by nukes, right? And nukes hurt, man. Nukes hurt, right? The word tells you that, hey, man, eyeballs are going to be melting out of your sockets. Skin going to be melting off your bones. That's the reward of being a friend of this world, right? Verse 23, "They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed of Yahweh, and their offspring with them," right? The seed of the promise are the elect. The elect of the nation of Israel, not all people. Now let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7. I'm going to jump down to verse 25. And it reads, "For she is the breath of the power of the Most High, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. For she is the brightness of the everlasting light, and the unspotted mirror of the power of the Most High, and the image of his goodness. Verse 27, "And being but one, she can do all things, and remaineth in herself. She maketh all things new, and in all ages enter into holy souls. She maketh them friends of the Most High and prophets," right? "For the Most High loveth none but him that dwelleth with wisdom," right? So you got to dwell in the bosom of wisdom, man. right? It tells you right here, the spirit of wisdom makes all things new, right? And it makes you friends of the Most High and prophets, right? The prophets are the friends of the Most High. They've been given the secrets, man. Those are the true servants, right? And the servants are going to have to go through things, man. They're going to have to be trials and tribulations, right? There's a price for not being a friend of this world, you know what I mean? But an even greater reward for enduring that tribulation, right? Let me get this. And this is St. Luke chapter 11. I'm going to start at verse 47. It says, "Woe unto you, for ye build this sepulchres of the prophets, and your fathers killed them." Right? This is talking about the wicked scribes and Pharisees, the wicked men of the generation that would, claim to respect the prophets and venerate the prophets, but their fathers were the ones that killed them, And really in the in the regeneration, they're the same people, right? They are back again doing the same wicked works to their father. Right? Verse 48. "Truly ye bear witness that ye allowed the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed killed them and buried them in the sepulchres." Verse 49. "Therefore also said the wisdom of the Most High, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they shall slay and persecute." Right? Verse 50. "That the blood of all the prophets which was shed from the foundation of the earth may be required of this generation." Right? Hey, so the people that killed the prophets, right, that persecute the prophets, they're going to get a reward for that, So you just got to endure, man. You just got to endure. Right? Verse 51, "From the blood of Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, which perished between the altar and the temple, verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation." Right? So you can't be worrying about, like I said in the book of Ezra, you can't worry about what's going to happen to the wicked, man. Hey, focus on what's going to happen to the righteous, man, because that's what you should be striving to be a part of, man. When the saints come marching in, man, you hope to be in that number, right? Let's go to book of Revelation, chapter 18 and verse 20, right? It says, "Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for the Most High have avenged you on her," right? And this is talking about, in the last days in which we're in Mystery Babylon, the apostles and prophets are going to be out here doing the work, and they're going to be avenged when Mystery Babylon is destroyed, when America is destroyed. And that's a reward for being a friend of the Most High, What's a friend of the Most High? We just read it in the Wisdom of Solomon. A friend of the Most High is a prophet, right? The prophets and the apostles, they're going to get their recompense, right? They're going to get the reward for separate from this world, You got to separate from being so-called black, from being so-called Latino, Native American. Nah, man, you got to come back to being a child of the Most High, Yasharallah, right? Prince of Power. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 12. And I'm going to start at verse 10. It says, "And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his anointed. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night." Right? So you ask for reparations. No, man, we want to see the accuser of our brother Esau, Edom, fall, man. That's what we want. That's our reparations, right? The kingdom, right? We want the cup to be passed over to them, like it says in Lamentation. Let me go to Lamentation real quick. I believe it's 4:21. Right, it says, "Rejoice and be glad." Book of Lamentations 4 and verse 21 says, "Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwelleth in the land of Uz." Right, the modern day land of Uz is America, right? It's in America. It says, "The cup also shall be passed through unto thee," right? "Thou shalt be drunken and shalt be make thyself naked. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no longer carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins," right? And that's the recompense to Edom for what he's done to us in this Mystery Babylon. We're not trying to get our reparations of money, because we're going to get all of the riches. It tells you that the kings of this earth are going to bring the riches to the Israelites when they're ruling in the kingdom. You know what I mean? So we don't want no little bitty money that they're trying to give us of their worthless monopoly money, of their fiat currency. It's not even worth nothing. You can't even really, you know what I mean? That dollar's not even going to get you what you need in this life. You know, it's worthless money. You know what I mean? It's toilet paper with slave masters' faces on it. That's all that is, right? So let's go back to Revelation 12. And now I'm at verse 11. It says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death, right? You can't love your life unto death. You can't be so obsessed with your life that you know what I mean, you're not willing to you know what I mean, force that sacrifice. Like the true elect are going to have to die for the truth, right? You know what I mean? Certain of them are going to be martyrs. Just like how you got Paul. I mean, all the apostles damn near died a painful death, right? They didn't love their life unto death. They weren't willing to, you know what I mean, compromise their morals and their principles and go against their God to save their life in this world, because they didn't, you know what I mean, they weren't in love with their life. They knew that they were going to be born again, right? They're going to be raised up in the last days if they stood firmly for the name of the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, right? You know, let's get this in. Let's go to the book of Sirach. Book of Sirach, chapter 10, and verse 1. It says, a wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. Right? So, you know what I mean? The head dictates the rest of the body. Right? And we're ruled by wicked men. So what do you expect the nation to be? You know what I mean? The mirror. The actions of that wicked man, you know? They're going to embody the wickedness of the leadership. That's why you got this culture of get money by any means necessary, you know, and so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, they've adapted that, right? That's why you see us killing each other in our neighborhoods and shit. We'll kill each other, and it won't even be about no money. It'll be about flags and blocks we don't own, right? I talked to some people that was gang banging. They tell me they was the brokest they ever been was when they was gang banging, right? It's just a wicked lifestyle. And then our people will sell out. They'll go sell poison to our own people, right? Whether it be drugs or just this music. This music is completely wicked, man. We got a whole thing called drill music, which is glorifying, you know what I mean, the murder of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, right? Black and brown people glorifying murdering each other and thinking that's cool, right? You know? And who's pushing that? Amalek. You know, I mean, it's the small hats, the tiny tops. They're pushing that, you know. And then we got the whole thing about being an independent woman. Now realizing that, you know what I mean, why would you want to work? You know, women have been sold a lie. You know, you could have been stay at home with the kids, keep the house. That's a lot easier than have to go out and bust your ass to pay your own rent. Instead of getting you a good man, you know what I mean, settling down, having kids, and you know what I mean, just enjoying life. Right? You're so obsessed of, you know what I mean, trying to be independent and separating yourself from the man. It's not a problem to go out and work, but you know what I mean, when you get to a point where you're downing your own men, and you know, even with our men, you know what I mean, downing our women, you know, it's all coming from not following the Most High God, right? Not following order. Right? Everything must be done decently and in order, right? Back here in Sirach chapter 10, and this is verse 3, it says, and an unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. Right? So when you rule with wisdom, you're going to have a bustling city, you know what I mean? You know, you're going to have a bustling civilization, right? It says, verse 4, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set up over it. He will set over it one that is profitable. right? And that's what we're waiting for. Yahweh Shai is the king that's going to be profitable. We're waiting for the Most High God to set up Yahweh Shai to rule over this wicked kingdom. And that's why it's important to be a friend of the Most High instead of a friend of this world. A friend of Yahweh instead of a friend of Esau Edom. You know, you can't worship the image of this beast, right? You can't go out there and get that brand that tells you you're forever a servant of Esau and the image of the beast, right? Of this beast system, right? And what's that brand? You know what I mean? We'll get that real quick. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 13, and verse 16 says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark, a charagma," right? That's the word. That's that word mark for the word mark in Greek is charagma, right? It's a literal mark, like a brand, right? To receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that have that mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name, right? So it's important to stay girded up. So if you're a friend of the Most High, in those times of struggle, he's going to be over you. He's going to be protecting you, right? The word says, "My servant shall eat, but you shall starve." And when people are starving, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go out there and get that chip, man. You know what I mean? They're going to be going and having pizza parties with Elon Musk, man, getting a microchip in their dome, you know, messing around with Neuralink and all that, right? Because perilous times are coming, man. So, hey, you got to be girded up. Gird up your loins like a man. You know what I mean? Make a friendship with the Most High God and not with this world, you know? Walk in the spirit and not by the flesh, and understand that, hey, the most important thing is to be building spiritual wealth. Everything you should do should be pleasing to the Most High God, you know? Don't try to, you put the Most High on the back burner. Now you're trying to be a content creator. Nah, bro, that's not what it's about. If you're a prophet, what's your job? Prophesy, right? You should be prophesying endlessly, man. Night and day until we get up out of here. You know, and that should be your focus, man. You should be studying, praying, you know what I mean? Fast when you can, you know what I mean? And add good works upon good works. You know what I'm saying? Hey, that's all I got to say, man. Hey, man, shalom, shalom. You know what I mean? I give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, Barak Yasharallah, Shalah Yerushalayim. You know what I mean? Hey, until next time, man, shalom.